Hello, friends! This is People Are Interesting with Jan K. In each episode of this show, unique individuals share stories that take us on a ride across ideas and places, featuring crocodile attacks in Indonesia, escaping war-torn Lebanon, and shark protection schemes in Mauritania. This podcast takes you where you've never been before. Enjoy and thank you for joining the club. Just about now. Hi everyone. Thanks for accepting the invitation, Francis. And please let me know first, did I get the name pronounced correctly?
Yeah, that was spot on.
Amazing. Thanks for accepting the invite again. And today we're going to be talking about parachute jumping and skydiving. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Fantastic. So I had to get this straight just because my knowledge of this area is quite rudimentary, I would say.
Okay.
So how did you get into it and what is it really?
So basically, it is we are chucking ourselves out of planes for fun. There's really no other way to put it. I got into it because it was something that I had always been aware of. Um, I never really thought about doing it seriously. It was just something that I knew existed and thought it was awesome. And I always loved like adrenaline stuff. Like I started climbing trees like as soon as I was able to. Like I'd go down to the local playground, and before my mum could even look for me, I was already at the top of the nearest climbable tree, that sort of stuff. And it just kind of went on from there. I like to know as much as I can about things before I do them, and considering that it is literally like jumping out of planes, I was quite scared to begin with. I was going on and on about it with my family, and as a result of that, for my 17th birthday, I got offered the chance to do a skydive. Um, when that happened, it kind of immediately set in for me like, okay, this is actually a reality. Am I going to do this or not? And what I decided was that I wasn't ready at that point because I didn't know enough about it. And there was a few other chances. I remember doing a lot of research into where I could do it, and I talked to my mum about it, and she was like, okay, well, that doesn't seem to be too expensive. How about we do it then? And that was in like a week's time. And this was probably a year and a half later. Um, I was still not ready for it at that point. And then when I turned 20, I decided, you know what, I've learned enough about the system. I am pretty sure I'm not going to die or seriously injure myself. And so I went along and I booked a tandem skydive. Um, I booked it with a friend of mine who I've known for a few years, and that honestly made the experience just so much better. Having him there, like being able to share it with him, was absolutely amazing. And yeah, so I did 10,000 feet. Um, so that's about 2 miles up. And I remember getting up at 5 a.m. To go pick him up and then go to the drop zone. And we were both so tired and so excited. And getting there, waiting around with everyone else being super nervous. And it was an absolute blast. And then when we went into the hall and had our briefings, I remember that's when it kind of kicked in more, and they were showing us the systems, they were showing us the harnesses, and that's when it became slightly more real to me. Then we got the harnesses on and we went out into the waiting area. We were probably there for about 10 minutes because at the drop zone there's an area that is designated for skydivers, and if you're not going to jump, you don't go beyond. that area. Uh, so while we were there, we were just kind of casually talking. We met a few other people there, so we were chatting about like why we were there and what we thought it was going to be like. Of course, we have no idea. um, and then I remember all of the instructors coming out with their rigs on. So the rig is the term that we use for the parachute system. So that consists of the container, which is the backpack with the leg straps, and then there is the canopy, which is the main parachute. There's also a reserve, which is in the top section of the container. So that's there in case we need to use it, in case we have a malfunction on the main for any reason. Um, and then we can cut away the main canopy and deploy the reserve. I've never had to do this, luckily. Um, but the odds are about 1 in 1,000 jumps that's likely to happen. I'll go into more detail about that a bit later, though. And then there's the AAD, or automatic activation device, and
Mm-hmm.
what that does is it measures the altitude and speed. So if you are unable to deploy any parachute below, I think it's either it's around 1,000 feet. If you're going more than 80 miles an hour on normal settings, then it will automatically deploy the reserve canopy for you. And that I know for a fact has saved the main manufacturer of them is Cyprus AirTech, and they have 5,100 recorded saves. So
Oh
it's
wow.
pretty good, yeah. And that's over 25 years, I think. Yeah, they're my favorite brand. um, so yeah, I see everyone coming out with their rigs on, and that's when it starts kind of going up a level. And then we are. I'd selected some recording options to be filmed. My friend had selected more. Um, so I got the exit to deployment filmed. He got um, the getting onto the plane down to landing recorded, and he also had an instructor with a hand cam, and he got that. I didn't because well, I don't know, but yeah, my instructor did not have a hand cam. Some don't. Um, so then we go out to the plane, and this is the first load of the day. Um, and at this point, I remember getting a little bit more scared, but thinking, okay, I've waited so long to do this, I've got to just get on the plane. So I get on the plane. And then the engines start up, we all get strapped in, we're sitting on the floor, and I did this at North London Parachuting Centre, which is near to Chatteris. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this was a Twin Otter plane that we were jumping out of. And yeah, I remember that taking off was pretty much just like any other plane ride because it is just a plane. A little more uncomfy because it didn't have seats, so we were all just sat on the floor and strapped into little cables for safety, and then they got taken off at 1,000 feet. Um, and yeah, I remember a big mix of emotions. A lot of it was excitement. There was some terror, but I didn't really have time to think about that. And then once we got up to 8,000 feet, that's when everyone started to get ready. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when the goggles went on. You always wear goggles, like eye protection, whenever you
Mm-hmm.
skydive, because otherwise the wind just blows the moisture out of your eyes and it's not very pleasant. And yeah, so 8,000 feet is when things started to get serious. I got strapped into the instructor. Um, the harnesses were all done up tight. I had the goggles put on. and that was when things started to get serious. Then we got up to exit altitudes, and the door opened. And at this point, I was terrified, um, because naturally, like, it's jumping out of the plane. You're going to be scared. Um, but I distinctly remember thinking, okay, I've waited 20 years to do this. There's no going back. Just sit back, relax, try to enjoy it. So I see one other person jump, and I don't really feel anything looking at it. Like, there is no time to feel. And
Mm-hmm.
then my friend jumps, and I see his face, and there was just a completely blank expression, like, because you don't have time to think, you don't have time to process anything. You are hanging outside of a plane. There is no time for thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was my turn. So we go to the front and climb into the door. And so the instructor is sitting on the door with his feet dangling outside, and me being strapped to him, I am literally outside of the plane at this point.
Oh wow.
And I've got all of the wind rushing past me. But again, I don't really have time to contemplate, like, okay, I am literally on the outside of a plane about to jump. And then I feel a push forward, pull back, and then a push forward, and then we're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a massive sensory overload. So there are several parts to the jump that I don't remember, but that I probably blacked out for a couple of seconds. Not blacked out, but the memories aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so 1 second I'm in the door, going backwards and forth. The next, I'm in freefall.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I feel a little bit of a drop, but it's not as big a drop as you might think. It's because you're going like probably 80 miles an hour or around that
Mm-hmm.
forwards. There isn't that drop of jumping off stationary things, like that drop in your stomach. You don't feel
Mm-hmm.
that. You feel that if you're jumping out of helicopters or hot air balloons, or if you're
Mm-hmm.
base jumping,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't feel that out of a plane. And my immediate thought was, whoa, because it all kind of hit me. And then as we were speeding up to terminal velocity is 120 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were speeding up to, well, for us at least, so as we were speeding up to 120, that's when the drogue gets deployed. So the drogue is the white cone-looking thing that comes out the back of the tandem
Mm-hmm.
rig. And what that is first of all, it's stabilizing, but also the combined weight of two people, terminal velocity for that is about 180 miles an hour. So the drogue is also there to slow you down to about 120 miles an hour. So the drogue gets deployed, and we're speeding up to 120 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we're basically there. I feel a tap on my arms, which we've been taught means that we can um, bring our arms out. Sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
forgot to mention before. We had our arms kind of crossed over our chest and touching our shoulders.
Okay.
So that's just safer to exit.
Mm-hmm.
And the legs were tucked under the plane. It was a very very interesting position to exit from. And
Mm-hmm.
my head was back against his right collarbone, I think.
Okay.
So as we get to 120, I feel a tap on my shoulders, and then it just hits me. I am in free fall. I'm going 120 miles an hour straight down into nothing, and this is the best moment of my entire life. I am absolutely loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, it's the most incredible feeling in the world because you've just got the wind rushing past you. You are falling into absolutely nothing. And it's absolutely indescribable. It's the sort of thing that if you try to explain, you can't. And if you've already experienced it, there's absolutely no need to explain. It's
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just getting used to falling. And I we were jumping into clouds, so there were clouds below, um, and we're just above the clouds. So it's absolutely beautiful up there. Clear blue sky, the sun is shining, and we're just falling through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember seeing the camera guy coming round, and he's pointing at his camera. And at that point, I snap out of it, and I just start screaming because I'm just having the time of my absolute life here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like just screaming my lungs out in happiness and waving my arms about, punching the air with my fists. It was absolutely incredible. And then, yeah, I just screamed the entire 30 seconds way down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we deploy at 6,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was, I think I measured it was 28 seconds looking back at the footage. 28 seconds of free fall, the single best 28 seconds of my entire life. And then I feel a sudden jolt, and then the next thing I know, we're in the clouds under canopy, and I can't see anything because it's just clouds all around.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the second time that I had massive sensory overload because we go from 120 miles an hour without warning to I don't know how much, but not very much in about 5 seconds. So it's quite a lot of force, but I didn't get injured. That was great. Back didn't hurt. Nothing hurt, and
Well, is that common to get injured while deploying a parachute?
no.
Ah, okay.
Sometimes you'll have a hard opening. This isn't very common at all. I think it was more just the fact that this was my first time experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't have any indication of how it would feel. And so the feeling that, okay, this worked was just absolutely mind boggling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come out of the clouds, and I look down and I can see everything for miles. And I'm still thinking, like, oh my gosh, how am I here? Like, I'm a mile up on the canopy. This is absolutely crazy, absolutely incredible. And then the guy hands me the steering toggles, which are two of the controls. So they're what we use to flare, and they are what we use to steer
Mm-hmm.
mostly. So they're connected to the back sides of the canopy. So I pull to the left, we go to the left. I pull to the right, we go to the right. And it was so much fun. And then, so I do a couple of them, and then he takes back control. I don't know what altitude we were at then, because I didn't have an altimeter. Um, but it was about a 5 minute descent,
Mm-hmm.
and we come in to land, and he flares, and we both stood it. We stood the landing, which doesn't often happen. And yeah, it was completely surreal that I'd just done that. And there was a slight bit of disappointment that the experience was over, but it was mostly just overwhelming happiness that I'd just done that and absolutely loved it. And I knew in that second that I was going to get licensed because I needed to do that again. and I needed to jump on my own. And so we're looking around. My friend had landed before me, but we were waiting for other people to come in. Everyone lands. The parachute gets collected up, and we go in and into the office, and we pay. And neither of us can really believe what's just happened. Like, we just jumped out of a plane from 10,000 feet and we survived. And I'm absolutely just in bliss. Like, this is what I have been wanting to do for so long, and I've now done it, and I'm so, so happy. Uh, then I crashed hard because obviously there is a massive adrenaline spike,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's got to come down. So about 10 minutes after we land, I crash hard, and then I down a bag of sweets, and then I'm better.
Mm. Interesting.
And yeah, I remember on the drive back, we were just kind of both in shock, like, wow, that actually happened. And then I got back and told my parents about everything, and said, "Yeah, I'm saving up to get licensed to go solo,"
Okay, let's.
and that's what I did.
Yeah, I actually, I
Yeah.
really like the account of your first jump.
Hmm.
It was, yeah, just very interesting to listen
Hmm.
about it. I think you're a good storyteller. And
Thank you.
let's talk about that. You getting a license,
Hmm.
what kind of like the course consists of,
Yeah.
how do you even fold a parachute? Like that sounds interesting, and all the kind of things and anecdotes around that.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then a year later, or I think it was like 10 months. So this was I did the tandem on the 20 something of August. Um, I can't remember the exact date, but I can look it up later. It was late August though, and then I had ground school on the 1st of July 2022. So ground school is a full day of all of the theory behind solo skydiving. So they talk you through and teach you all about the rig, and they show you a rig. They show you what it's made up of. They show you how to steer it, how to land it. They have all of these simulations set up, so you get to hang in a rig, and you're taught how to cut away in case of a malfunction and how to deploy the reserve. You're taught what malfunctions are. There's minor malfunctions and there's serious malfunctions. Minor malfunctions can be very easily, you can get out of them very easily. So that's things like end tail closures when on opening the parachute doesn't open quite fully, but they usually fix themselves very
Mm-hmm.
quickly. I've had probably like a good third or even more of my jumps. I've had end tail closures, and they always fix themselves before I have a chance to fix them. But to fix them, you just you pull down all the toggles twice,
Mm-hmm.
slowly though, slowly, and then they talk you through how to deploy. They talk you through the body position. They talk you through all the hand signals, because obviously when you're falling at 120 miles an hour, you can't hear anything apart from the wind. So you've got to have another way to communicate. So there are a bunch of hand signals which tell you to do different things. There's deploy immediately. I never had that one. There is check altimeter. I had that a couple of times. There is arch harder. There is straighten your legs. There's bend your legs. There's legs close together. There's point your toes. Um, and it's all stuff that you have to remember because you will be shown it at some point, um,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to respond. Um, so that was pretty much ground school. Yeah, they showed us all of the gear. So jumpsuits, altimeter goggles, helmet. They taught us the positions. They taught us how to exit the plane. Um, they taught us how to deploy. Um, I think that was it. There's probably a few other little things that I'm forgetting, but that was the gist of it. Just how to do
Right.
it safely and how it works and what there is. Um, and then we had to do a written test that was open book, um, which is about like heights to deploy. That was another thing which we got taught. Heights to deploy and how to check that the canopy is functioning properly, um, and how to. One of the slightly more serious malfunctions you can have is line twists, which is when
Mm,
the canopy comes out and it's not like straight. Like there are twists in the lines. There are ways to get out of that. You can kick out of it, or you can twist the risers the opposite direction. Um,
mm-hmm.
the
Oh, I see what
risers
you
are
mean.
what connect the lines to the harness, and they have some inputs as well.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I have had line twists once. I had them on my 50th jump, and it was due to packing, which I didn't do. Um, so yeah, that I got out of it very easily. It was a bit scary, but I was on a 230 square foot canopy, so pretty big. So that was not too bad at all, um, and that is the only time I've ever happened.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so after ground school, it was rainy the next day, so I came back on the Sunday. So I had ground school on the Friday, and I came back on the Sunday for the first jump. So they have a chart of based on your weight, your exit weight, what's the smallest canopy you can jump for the first time. So I qualified for the 230 square foot canopy, but I ended up jumping a 260 just to be a bit safer.
Mm-hmm.
The tandem I jumped, it was I think 350 square feet or bigger even. Tandems are big.
Okay.
Um, so I was jumping a 260 square foot, and I remember getting on the plane on the ride up. I was absolutely terrified. Like, yes, this is what I've been looking forward to for 10 months, but I am absolutely terrified. And then again, when we got up to altitude, this was, I think, 13,000 feet this time, because this was a different drop zone.
Right.
Simpson, UK parachuting Simpson. Um, and yeah, when the door opens, you just go into that like mindset of okay, gonna jump. There isn't really time to worry. There isn't time to think about anything bad. There just isn't. Um, so I get into the door. I have two instructors because it's my first jump. Um, I have one on the inside, one on the outside, and we're taught to crouch in the door, facing into the wind, and to kneel down, and then we have to say check in to the instructor on the right, get a response that's like a thumbs up, that's all good, and then we go check out to the left, to the instructor that's on the outside of the plane, all good. Then we initiate the exit sequence. So then we say out, and we're moving as we do this. So we're moving out, then back in, and then out. And when we jump wide, we arch hard, and we present ourselves to the wind. So when I jumped, immediately, every little bit of stress and anxiety and fear about the whole thing just went away. And that's again what I had on the first jump. It just it's terrifying on the way up, but then on the way down, it's absolutely bliss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I remember that I I just think, okay, awesome, I'm in free fall. This is absolutely amazing. I've missed this so badly. So I do the maneuvers that we have to do on the jump. So for this one, because it's just a very beginner one, we have to uh, show that we know we're at altitude. Um, we have to do practice touches on the pilot chute deployment handle, just to make sure that we know where it is so that we can safely deploy. So we do
Hmm.
that 3 times and then keep on checking altitude and then deploy when we get to 6,000 feet.
Wait, so is there someone flying through the air with you at the same time, or how does this work?
Yeah, yeah. So on the first 3 jumps, you have 2 instructors that are holding on to you. They're there to
Mm.
stabilize you, they are there to make sure that you're okay, they are there to give you instructions for the body position, basically. Um, so they're there for the first 3 jumps, and then you go down to just one instructor
Hmm.
after that. And then once you pass 7 levels, then you are going out on your own. So the levels get more and more increasingly tricky. Um, there is probably way too much that I can talk about for what time we have. So I'll just be brief with that.
Okay.
They go up more in difficulty. The first one is 3 practice touches and making sure that you're at altitude, and then deploying yourself. I think you failed that level if you don't deploy your own parachute. I
Hmm.
passed that though. The second one is, I think, 2 practice touches and then maybe turns. I can't quite remember. It was a while ago. Um, but yeah, they get more and more difficult. You add turns in. You eventually get to solo freefall with an instructor there, and then you have solo exits. So that was jump 5 for me, and level 5 is the first solo exit. So that's when you're literally not connected to anyone. You're just jumping yourself, and then you have to gain stability, and then do some turns. And a few other things, I think. And then you have a dive exit, so that's towards the back. So again, solo exit, but you dive and have to not flip over.
Hmm.
So that's level 6. I didn't get level 6 completely right, so I did fail that and have to retake it. But the second time, I got it absolutely spot on. And then level 7 was the same thing again, but then adding a few more turns in, and again, I nailed that. So then,
When you say a turn, what do you mean?
so a turn is, if you're in free fall, you're going straight. You um, you chuck your elbow down to cut into the wind to turn your body around to face another direction.
Oh, okay.
So you have to do 90 and 360 turns
Oh,
a
wow.
few times to qualify. Um, and yeah, so then after that, I had my solo license. So that was 8 jumps that it took to do that. And I think it was about 3 weeks, I want to say. I did move in the middle, so I lost a few days. But yeah, that took about 3 weeks. But also, it totally, like, it takes out of you. Each jump is meant
Hmm.
to be like a full work day. So think about, like, some people will do like 6 jumps a day, so that's 6 working days in one. That it's a lot. There's a lot that you have to think about. There's a lot that you have to do. So it really does take it out of you. Um,
Have you ever done more than one jump in one day?
yes, I've done 5
Oh,
before.
wow.
Yeah, so I did 4 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon.
That is
Um,
a lot of jumping.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a lot of fun. Usually, it's like, I'd say a decent day for me is, if I don't stay over at the drop zone, can probably do 5 or 6 fairly easily. Um, That's if loads are every hour or every hour and a half, and you get onto the first load.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that was the first jump, and I passed it. And then about a week later, I went back for my second, and that went fine again. I passed it. Um, and then I think the next time I maybe did two jumps in that day. Um, and that was literally like first load of the day. We get down, and then we're told, get another rig, you're going up again immediately. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I jumped twice in that hour. And yeah, I passed both those levels. And then I did three jumps when I graduated from my Cerner license. I did three jumps. I can't remember how many jumps the other
How
days.
many levels are there?
So there is um, 8 levels. So there are 7 free fall levels, and then there is what's called a hop and pop, which is a low altitude exit at 6,000 feet,
Mm-hmm.
usually, um, where you have to deploy your parachute stably within 10 seconds of jumping.
Mm-hmm.
That was maybe the most terrifying jump because it was so low.
What does it mean to deploy a parachute stably?
So you are not twisting and tumbling, you're in control of how you're moving, you're presenting yourself to the wind, so you can, you know that you can deploy, you can pull the pilot chute and you can chuck it and it'll inflate and it'll pull the parachute out and there won't be any twists in it. And it won't wrap around anything. Um, yeah, I don't really know how else to describe it.
No, no, that
Um,
makes sense.
yeah,
That
yeah.
makes a lot of
So,
sense. So you can
yeah,
do that?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, so you've got to be able to demonstrate that. It's mostly just for emergency circumstances. That was something else we were taught in ground school, what to do in the event of an emergency. Um, and basically, just at different altitudes, you're going to do different things. Below 1,000 feet, you're going to put your restraint on and you're going to brace. Above 1,000 feet, it depends on the jump master on the load, so the person who's in control of the load. But they are likely you're either going to brace or you're going to jump and deploy your reserve immediately. And then if you're higher, then you will deploy the main. Um, and yeah, so then after that, you've got 10 called consolidation jumps. So that is exercises set by your instructors for you to carry out in free fall. You don't jump with anyone, you're completely on your own, but you do get dispatched by an instructor. So they have to do a gear safety check before you jump, and then they'll say, okay, you're good to go, and then you jump. But then you do everything on your own. When you're jumping with an instructor, usually you'll have a walkie-talkie on your helmet so that they can instruct you when to do things and they'll tell you when to flare, stuff
Right.
like that. And then as time goes on, you'll become more independent. Um, so yeah, that I so it's a minimum of 18 jumps. I did it in 19. Um, and then after that, you do another test and you pay a bit more money for the full license, and then you've got the A license. And then you don't get checked at the top, but you do still get dispatched. Um, and so I am currently on 56 jumps. Um, I hold the British Skydiving B license, and I am jumping a 190 square foot canopy currently, which I pack myself. Because once you're at B, you get to wear a full face helmet. So I do. It's very nice. It's comfortable. It looks amazing, and it's safe. And I have an audible altimeter in that helmet, which beeps at me at certain altitudes, and I have a visual one on my wrist, uh, which is big and digital, and it's very easy for me to read. So that's really, really good.
And in terms of equipment, do you rent all of that, or do you own some of it?
So my helmet is mine. My altimeters are mine. The rig I'm currently renting from Romec Rigging.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. I've got the rig for 6 months, and in that time I can use it pretty much as I want. I can't do beach landings or water landings,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't lend it to anyone, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to anyway at this point. But I pack it myself, which is quite nice because I get better at doing that. And
That sounds scary.
yeah, yeah. And it's also cheaper jump tickets. So it's £40 usually if you're renting gear, or 25 if you have your own.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's way cheaper than I thought it would be.
yeah. A lot of people are very surprised by that.
Ah,
Yeah, so I can pack my own canopy, and I also recently qualified as a packer. So what that means is that I can get paid to pack canopies for other people.
all
Uh,
right.
yeah, so that's pretty awesome. It at the moment it takes me, with the gear I have, it's about half an hour to pack because the canopy is really difficult to get into the deployment bag
Mm-hmm.
because it's it's a maximum rated for that bag, but if it's a canopy that goes easily in there, I can probably do it in about 15 minutes. Um,
Interesting. What's
yeah.
like, what's the technique behind it? Or actually,
Um,
because that might be slightly too technical to explain it over the podcast.
yeah.
Let's
Hmm,
talk about
hmm.
the risks of
Okay.
skydiving. I think that's a
The
bit more
risks.
understanding and comprehensible
Okay.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
average listeners.
Yeah. So the risks is one of the reasons why I didn't start earlier, actually, because I wanted to understand the risks. But there are so many safety mechanisms built into the sport. So statistically, it is safer to jump out of a plane with a modern rig on than it is to actually drive to the drop zone.
Mm,
Um, it sounds a bit weird saying that. Like, a lot of people may question that, but in terms of ratios, there is far fewer skydiving deaths per skydives per year than there are car deaths
mm.
per car crashes per year.
Doesn't
Um,
surprise me. Driving is a
yeah,
dangerous business.
yeah, um, yeah. So it's actually a lot safer than a lot of people think. You've got the main canopy, which has to be inspected every so often. I think it's every 6 months usually. People will get that done with the reserve. The reserve canopy only advanced packers and above
Oh, something broke
can
up.
pack those. Oh, can you
Oh,
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you well. It cut off just literally for 2 seconds. What were you saying about the
Oh,
reserve canopy?
so the reserve canopies, not just everyone can pack them. They have to be packed by someone who is certified to pack them. They have to be repacked every 6 months and
Mm-hmm.
inspected,
Mm-hmm.
and usually you'll get the entire rig inspected at the same time, including the main canopy. The
Right.
reserves are also they are 7 cell instead of 9 cell. So canopies are either going to be 7 or 9 cell. 7 cells open a lot better, but are not as sporty. They don't fly quite as well as 9 cells. They are like um, I don't know how to explain it. Um,
Are we talking thickness of the canopy right now?
no,
It's
no, no.
what
So it's
what does
all
that
it's
mean?
all the same. It's all the same material,
Okay.
or mostly. It's something called zero porosity fabric. But the there's something called the glide ratio, which is how far forward you go to how far down you go, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So the glide ratio on 7 cells doesn't tend to be that great, I think. I'm not really an expert in the differences,
That's
but
okay.
7 cells are they're better. They're much better openings. Um, and also reserves are designed to open it even better,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they are packed slightly differently as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so they're repacked and inspected every 6 months. Any work that needs doing to them will be done.
Mm-hmm.
You also have the automatic activation device, which is checked, and depending on the manufacturer, you may need to get it sent back to the factory to have some preventative measures put in place.
Right.
And um, yeah, that's you have minimum altitudes that you can cut away the main canopy for it to be safe to deploy the reserve in time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I I've heard a rumor. I don't know if this is a fact, but I have heard of cases when people died because they waited too long to cut away their main and go to their reserve.
Mm.
I don't know if that is a fact, but I've heard. Um,
And just in terms of the jumping itself, because
yeah,
I get the thrill of flying through the air, and you've
yeah.
explained it quite
Hmm.
well. But is there also an element of going to different locations and jumping and like having nice views when you're flying
Oh
down,
yeah,
or?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And there's also like you can jump out of a whole load of different things. So I've jumped out of mainly Cessna,
Mm-hmm.
Grand Caravans, super vans, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They fit like 15 to 17 people and get up to jump altitude within 10 to 20 minutes. Um, there's also Skyvans, which is like the back opens up, so they
Mm.
are apparently very, very fun to jump out of. There aren't any of them in the UK. There is one in the Czech Republic, or Czechia, I think it's now called, in Skydive Pink Clatterby. So I got to make a trip out there at some point. But there's also like you can go jumping in the Caribbean. You can jump in the Philippines, in Thailand, all sorts of places. Um, there are not very many places that you can go that won't have a drop zone.
Mm.
So yes, it is also for the views.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, that sounds amazing.
yeah,
So you've done just over 50 jumps now. How many jumps
yes.
do you want to do? Like, is there a limit? Is there like a an
Um,
a point at which you kind of become proficient at it, or how does it work?
um, so 56 jumps may sound like a lot to some people, but that is absolutely nothing
Mm-hmm.
in the sport. Like
Okay.
I am a complete beginner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of my instructors have multiple thousands of jumps. The like there are people on the Red Bull Air Force. Jeff Provenzano is one of them. He has over 21,000 jumps.
Jesus.
Uh, yeah. A few of my instructors, they had, I think, 2,500 jumps, 3,500, 5,000, 6,000. Um, one of the people that I think the person that my friend jumped with on the tandem, he had 18,000. Um, yeah, so 56 is not very many.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I'm aiming to do 150 jumps this year. I've done four so far. Um, and there's tons of other things that you can do. It's not just free fall. There is canopy progression. So I'm on a 190 square foot canopy. I started out on 260 square foot. I want to get into swooping, which is turning the canopy using the one of the inputs, diving it basically, and then bringing it out of the dive and going super fast, close to the ground. It's very dangerous, but with the proper techniques and proper coaching, you can get
Wait,
really good
what is it that you
good
want
at
to
it.
do? I didn't quite catch it.
So instead of going at the normal like forward and down, you pull on the front inputs of the canopy
Mm-hmm.
and then pull round to either the right or left using that to go straight down on the canopy. And you'll do a few twists to build up speed, and then you'll use the rear inputs to drive the canopy out of that motion.
Right.
It's called the recovery arc. So you'll use the rear inputs to drive the canopy out of that and maintain the speed. So you'll go maybe I've seen people hit 90 miles an hour down under canopy, and then they drive out of that and go like 75, 80 miles an hour along the ground,
Oh,
and
wow.
go really, really far. I think
Oh,
the world
screw that.
the the world record distance was using an extremely high performance canopy. I think it was a 55 square foot canopy, and it was 222 meters, I think. Uh, so that was, yeah,
Wait,
222
kilometers an
meters.
hour, you mean?
No, no, no. That was the distance in meters that they traveled after they'd driven themselves out of the downward spiral.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's along the ground. I One of my coaches, I've seen a video of him hitting 97 miles an hour under canopy, coming out of the swoop. That was on a Valkyrie 71. Valkyrie is a very high performance canopy.
Hmm.
Um,
So what would you put in YouTube to see that?
um, Probably skydiving swoop.
Okay, got it.
There's a great video that was filmed at Ekstremsportveko in Norway a few years ago. If you type in, I think it's "This is swooping." I'll find it. Yes. Yeah, so if you type in "This is swooping" and it's by Vertical Films, it was 3 months ago,
All right,
and
I'll
it
have a look to
the
get the
the, the
idea.
start of it is absolutely incredible. Uh, yeah, that's quite it's quite something.
Sounds
So
amazing.
that's what I want to end up doing really. I
All
want to
right.
get better in freefall as well, but yeah, canopy stuff is what excites me a lot at the moment.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experiences. This
Yeah,
sounds
my
amazing.
absolute
This
pleasure.
I wish you nothing but a lot of safe jumps.
Thank you very much.
And we'll keep in touch in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
your jumping. And wow, well,
yeah.
quite a hobby to have, I have to say.
I know, yeah. And thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you
Been a
for
great
accepting the
experience.
invitation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
of course.
Thanks very
Of
much.
course.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.